says it's setting up. I don't think you can see this on your side. So I'm telling you, it's setting up our meeting for a Facebook Live,
Okay.
which means we'll probably have a slight lag on the Facebook page. Let's see. Ooh, I think this means we're live. Let's see if I can check in my group. Yay, we're live. Okay, we have a slight delay there, so that's going to be a little funny, but that's okay. And I'm Besties and Bosses. Hey, I'm going to be a little tech funny, but hey, Besties and Bosses, happy Tuesday. We're hopping on a little late because technology is really cool. Just a great reminder for all of you when doing lives. It doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. Everything, as Marie Forleo says, is figure outable. So who knew you can go live from Zoom to Facebook, and there's a new Facebook editor. So all sorts of new fun things to try and to play with. But that's not what we're talking about today. I have got a very, very special guest with us today. I don't do this often, and I'm really excited to have a conversation and get to chat all things manifesting, money, and clients during this time. I think it's coming up particularly, I know for some of my clients, and I'm sure it is for a lot of you. So we have the lovely Cara Viana here with us today. I always worry about butchering names, so I'm going to let her say her name properly and introduce herself.
That was perfect.
Yay! And then we'll dive into the topic. But Cara's got so much experience. She's bringing over 20 years of experience in the spiritual transformational life coaching world. She is an incredible healer. She's a dear friend of mine as well. We're in a mastermind together. She's also a manifesting expert. So I think she will be really fun to just talk about some of the, I say mistakes very loosely, but just some of the things we see come up with manifesting. But Cara, do you want to introduce yourself and tell the people who you are before we talk all the things?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited, and I feel really honored to get to be here and play with Kim. She's one of my favorite people ever. So I get to do all the fun things. I get to do magical things for a living, and I think it's I just feel really lucky every day. I work with clients one-on-one doing healing work and energy work, and I teach people how to tap into their gifts and use their intuition in life and business and relationship and all the areas, and how to come back to that place of connectedness to yourself and then live from that place, which, you know, sounds really general, but it actually is a really specific, empowered way of being. And I lead workshops and retreats. I travel a lot, and I get to do online classes. So it's really fun work. I get to be here and share it with all of you now.
And I'll make sure at the end we get some links from Cara so y'all can find her in the online space outside of this group. If I'm all over the place, by the way, and not looking at y'all, it's because I'm trying to figure out technology, but I am so present with you.
So grateful that you're doing that complicated part.
The comments, if you all are leaving comments, we're on a slight delay, so I'll just keep checking back and forth, and we will make sure we answer the questions and check in all the comments, if anything else, afterwards as well. But what brought around this conversation, besides Cara being just an amazing, brilliant, gifted human being, is I know with all of you, I'm always talking about mindset and the thoughts and how much our thoughts create our reality in business, and how you can really get a great idea of what's going on with your mind based on the results in your business. If you take a look at your business, if you take a look at your life, it's usually a mirror of what's going on in your brain, and often like what's been going on in your brain and with your actions in the past 90 days. Our thoughts are usually a little ahead of what's showing up in our life. And what we don't talk a lot about in this group is manifesting. And I think there's a really interesting crossover from the mindset world into manifesting, but it just kind of picks up on some more of some people might call it woo, some people might call it universal energy. I honestly think it's science as much as it is energy and woo. So that's why I wanted to bring this in here today. What I've been finding with clients, and Carol, I'll be really interested to hear from you about this, but I've been finding with Corona and just as fear and scarcity is just at a different level, and just the conversations, everyone's in this situation in a different way. I've been having clients come to calls, and they're just worried that if they're thinking bad thoughts, if they're in fear, if they're in scarcity, if thoughts are coming up, are they going to manifest bad shit into their life? Are they going to sabotage their business? Are they going to manifest themselves to get sick, for example? So I thought that would just be a great reason to talk about this specifically. I want to ask Cara all the things about manifesting, but before we kind of dive into that part, Cara, do you want to talk a little bit first just about your background with manifesting?
Yeah, I have studied law of attraction and worked with all of this for 15 plus years. I really think that Abraham Hicks is one of the greatest teachers on this topic. They were really like the beginning of all of it, and I think a lot of it has gotten sort of missed or lost. The beginning, I'm sorry, that's not fair. The beginning of the current wave, we had, you know, Napoleon Hill and even Einstein was talking about this kind of thing, just not maybe using the same terminology we use. So this has been around a really long time. And I have studied it and worked with it from maybe a slightly different angle, because doing the spiritual and energy work that I do, part of what I do is act as a channel, or I say translator, and I talk to people's higher self or their inner being, that part of them that knows everything, the spirit, soul, source part. So I'd been hearing these truths coming from that aspect of thousands of people over all the years. So then when I started to understand the energetic, like law-based side of it, it really made sense to me, because I was coming with all of this like explanation and experience and proof really from that direction. So I come at it a little different than maybe other people might.
I love that, because it just gives us also a different way. I think it's a concept that some people understand and some people don't. And I think the fact that you come at it from a different focus, different lens also helps us to have a little bit of a different way to look at it and understand it. I have so many questions. I want to ask, actually, let me ask you this first. How would you define manifesting? I know that's like a random question, but I think sometimes people hear that and they're like, well, what is that? Is that magic? Like,
because I think most people have heard something about it and they usually try it, and the try usually goes like this: great, I want $1 million. And then they write it on a vision board, and then they tape it to the wall, and then they wait for 3 days, and then they're like, that's BS, because I didn't get my $1 million.
That's not how it works. I'm so upset right now.
Amazingly. And so then it gets this really, and then people get really annoyed, like that's just woo-woo crap that means you don't actually have to do any work in the world. And I hear stuff like that, and I'm like, wow, that is a really backwards understanding of this. So I would say that we are energy, right? That's not woo, that's just science. We're energy, and energy vibrates, has a vibration, just like sound waves. And the energy that we're vibrating, we're putting out into the world, you could say, like you feel people's energy when you hang out with them, like that person's really heavy today, or this person feels really inspiring, or you know, the people come to you because the energy, the way that you put yourself out in the world feels good to them, and they like it, it's inspiring, you're trustworthy and honest, and all these, I could go on and on. Anyway, so we have this energy we're putting out. Well, like attracts like in this universe, and we are attracting based on the energy that we're putting out. And that's how manifestation works, is that when you start to understand that and be a little more specific about it, you can tweak the things that are coming to you, or let them come more easily. Does that make kind of sense?
That makes a lot of sense. I will share my thought on it, because I have such a like basic way of describing it, and I hear like the way you're describing it is just, it makes sense on a different level. And I talk a lot about taking up space in business, and a lot of what I talk about is how it's not just physically taking up space and like doing things on a checklist, it's energetically taking up space. When you're online sharing in a Facebook group, you can feel the difference between someone just doing something because they're supposed to, or like even like I call it hiding in plain sight, like hiding in a post versus like energetically taking up space. And it's something in acting you learn a lot about, which is my past life. So when you're talking about manifesting from this way, to me, it makes a lot of sense, because it's I think of like when you're acting, you have to energetically get into the part to be that. And here it's like you're energetically stepping into something to draw more of that towards you. Is that, am I understanding the way you're describing it?
And you think about those people who things flow easily to, like in the acting world, I know there are people who have that level of confidence and that like inner poise, and they just walk in and they expect to get the part, and they get the part, and everyone's throwing everything at them, and then everyone else is looking at them like, what's that person doing? Well, it's the energy they put out. It has to do with their expectation and the proof that they've shown themselves, which makes it easier. It's why once we do something once, it's so much easier to continue to generate it, because now our brains can believe it.
It's why I preach mindset work, y'all, because it's a component of what you're talking about. When your mind is on board, you're energetically going to show up a different way. And I just see Courtney saying hi. So hi, Courtney. We can see the comments. So that makes complete sense to me. So here's my follow-up question that came up when you were talking about your work. Since you have, I mean, your work is so incredible. I don't know anyone else who does work like you, by the way. But when you are able to speak to someone's higher self, and it might be nice because I think my group has people who will understand that it won't. So maybe if you just briefly explain what that means. How would you say your higher self ties into manifesting, or does it not? I could be.
Yes.
Okay.
It so does. This is the biggest piece. Well, let me back up and give some like terminology. So there's us, the like consciousness version of us. And if you were to draw it on a piece of paper, like say it's this big, and then there's this big, that's the rest of you. So assuming that you could believe that there's more to us than just this body, that there's like a soul, and that soul continues, which science is largely getting around to finding proof of, right? In different ways. It's that rest of you, that soul that I grew up calling higher self. People call it inner being. Louise Hay calls it the inner ding, like ding, 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 which I love. And when you talk about your intuition, that's what you're talking about. This part of you that knows more than you know, and that feeling of like, this feels like a guided thing to do. This feels like a natural yes to me, or I think I should take this exit to get home today. I'm not really sure why, but I'm just gonna follow that. So that piece, and you can get really adept at this part of what I teach people is how to get into a place where you can follow that much more easily instead of just waiting to like, maybe I'll know. So here's the piece about manifestation that's the biggest misunderstanding that people have. And there are experts preaching in the world who are missing this piece and causing a lot of angst. So I get real mama bear about it.
Bring out the claws.
Exactly. I get really like protective and ferocious that, you know, people feel like you were saying, oh no, if I have a bad thought, am I going to create that? My thoughts create my reality. Am I going to create that? Look, you have to be logical and remember that we have all had the, whoa, what if I just ran off a cliff, AKA Wile E. Coyote style, right? What if I accidentally fell in front of a train one day and like splat? How many of us has that actually happened to? You know, how many times have you thought, gee, I hope I don't get hit by a, I don't know, pack of wild dogs today? Or like just random freak thoughts. They fly through our minds. Does that happen? No. 1 in 1 billion, right? Of the times that we have a thought, does anything even remotely come close to that? So yes, our thoughts are creating our reality, but it takes a lot to generate reality. That's one piece, as a lot of a thought for a while, thought that has like a lot of energy behind it. And here's the piece everyone misses, and that is that you have a vibration and a point of attraction, what's coming at you and the vibration that you've got going. But so does your higher self or your soul, and they are different. And this part of you is always, always, always vibrating your highest good and all of your dreams and desires and the truest version of everything you could ever imagine and dream of. And it's not the $1 million. It's the thing you want more than the $1 million. It's the reason you would ask for $1 million. It's freedom, it's truth, it's knowing yourself, it's confidence. It's all way more complicated than you can understand. And that part of you has a vote, a really, really big vote. When we are voting the same, meaning when we're vibrating the same as that part of us, it's like we have incredible power to attract. When we get crossways and that part of us is really vibrating really positive, beautiful things coming towards us and people who appreciate us and positive experiences and abundance and happiness, and we're over here going like, oh no, I'm so scared, I'm freaked out, it's not, the ratio is not even. This has so much more power than we have a very, very limited amount of power when we do that. It's sort of like, we are a toaster, and when we plug into the wall, there's all this power. And then we start to get real crossways and scared and worried. You unplug the toaster and it doesn't have a lot of juice anymore. So yes, we can attract things that we don't particularly want. most of the time we're just making it harder for the good stuff to get to us, really. So if you were to see if I can get a tangible example, like if you really wanted a new car, and this is a real life example from a client of mine, you really want a new car and you don't believe it's possible, you don't think you have the money, you tell the universe I want this car, but you're like, ugh, I really don't know how they're going to get it to me because I'm stuck at this job and I have to make these payments and da, 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 da. And then you get in an accident and you think to yourself, I suck at this. I've been practicing trying to be positive. Obviously I blew it. I'm way too negative. I can't even trust myself. I shouldn't go out of the house. My thoughts are getting me in danger. You're fine from the accident. Your car is not fine. Your insurance company winds up buying you a new car. You're totally stressed about it for weeks. This is horrible and all the bad things. And eventually, like, the end result is you're driving this fun new red car and you get on the phone with your coach who goes like, gee, good job manifesting the thing you wanted. Maybe next time let's practice bringing it in a little more slowly so you don't have to get rear-ended. A little gently, a little more, maybe if you could believe it a little easier, or we could practice that mindset work, then the things can flow in with less angst. And honestly, in that real life situation, it wasn't a lot of angst. You know, he was totally fine. It was not an aggressive car accident. And it was just a few weeks of him beating himself up. Ultimately, that was the whole thing. So it took a little while for all the good stuff to flow in. But then in hindsight, most of us in hindsight, we look back on the things that we think or we thought in the moment were really bad. And we're really grateful it happened, and we can see it was actually a good thing, usually.
I always say to clients, I don't know if this resonates with you, but I always say we always get what we actually want. And so it's sort of like what you're talking about, where we might say one thing or we might have a fuck ton of resistance around something. It's sort of like, I think what you're saying is, and tell me if I'm butchering this, but the way I think about it with the work I do is sort of like you have your higher self and what you actually want. And like, that's more like the pure being. That's the part of me that came to New York for no rational reason. It's like, I need to move here. I moved here 2 weeks later and it all worked out perfectly. And it's the intuition. It's just the bigger, more positive self. And then we have us in human flesh, which is like, hey, we're humans having a human experience and we have childhood experiences and all the muck that gets kicked up. And it's sort of like, if there's a clear path to get something, all of our humanness just kind of like throws mud and stuff to just make it a little more slippery. And so that's just like all our resistance, our fears, our insecurities, and our mixed messages we essentially send the universe from our mindset in terms of like, I know I really want this thing, but I always get what I actually want. Sometimes I just have to make it a little harder on myself. But even when bad stuff happens, everything's always working for me. And if I really peel back the layers, I can see where the gift is. Yes. Does that feel like what you're saying?
100%. And if you could imagine, like, there was a little kid and their parents were like, the kid had been dying to get a puppy, like aching in their just deepest soul for this puppy. I want a puppy so bad. And the parents are like, okay, we got a really great surprise for you. It's amazing. And there's a big wrap box. And the kid gets in their head that this is scary. They're scary because it's a box. And I don't know, it's in my living room and I'm freaking out because I'm 4 and starts melting down like, Nah! And the parents are like, this is the thing. No, come on, like get up. You're missing the big reveal of but this is just a scary box that's making scratching sounds and they're losing their mind. Like, no, it's so scary. Get me out of here. Why would you put me through this? That's like us. Our higher selves are like, this is everything you asked for. And we're like, it's terrible. We're so scared. It's so much drama. Everything goes wrong for me. And then we make this big scene. And then eventually we're like, oh, a puppy?
That's what I asked for. Why did you say so? Oh, so good. I have like 1,800 things I want to jump on here, but let me just check to see if we have any comments because y'all, I apologize. I'm not good at the multitasking thing, but that actually fits in. Last week I did a live on how multitasking is not possible and it makes you it lowers your IQ. So if I seem a little less smart on this live stream, it's because I'm temporarily lowering my IQ. Danny is on. She says hi and a bunch of hearts and the star eyes. Danny McDonald, who I think did your photos.
Oh, right? Yay. Yes, Danny.
And I think I saw Kate as well. So hi, y'all. Thank you for joining. I think we're getting a little delay. So if you have questions or anything you want me to ask Cara, or if you have questions for me as well, just throw them in the comments and I'll make sure I play translator and relay them back. Okay, I have 8,000 questions. Let me ask you this while we're kind of talking on this piece with the puppy in the box and the fear part, because I think that ties into what we opened with a little bit and just what's going on in the world right now. And I think overall as humans, fear is a normal, I mean, we're wired to have fear. That's just a normal, when we think about humans having a human experience, it's a really, really normal thing. And I think right now fear has just been kicked up a few notches, and a lot of us are just hanging out in that stress response a lot more. I also think scarcity, very common and very normal. I have thoughts on that, but I think it's just been kicked up a little bit. How do you think, and maybe it just is as simple as the dog in the box example, but how do you think that affects manifesting? Do you think when we're in this place of scarcity, when we're in this place of heightened fear, is it that our higher self can just like pull us through? Is it just that we're resisting that dog in the box? Or, I mean, just talk to me about what comes up for you around that. I'm not formulating the question very well here.
We can definitely throw more mud on our path. We can like make our higher self like drag us. Like little kids when they're full tantrum and you see the parents just dragging them. Like sometimes that's us, and it's okay, we're human, that's part of it. So what we can do is like, we can get so freaked out and we can dig in so vehemently to the story that we insist on telling. There's no jobs, there's no money, everyone, it's a recession, it's whatever story you want to tell. Like, we dig in so hard and we push at bay all this good stuff that's trying to come to us so aggressively that like it's hard for it to get in. But we are not good at maintaining that. We get distracted, we watch Netflix, we go out with our friends or get on Zoom with our friends, we go to sleep. And as soon as that happens, we get distracted and like our resistance goes down and like in rushes your higher self, like bringing all the stuff. quick, bring all the stuff in. And then we're like, no, oh, I'm so committed to my, story. And so it has to kind of sometimes come in a little sideways, a little like creative. So really probably if you would pan back and look like in our realm of businesses and business owners, there's probably a lot of slowing down of abundance happening. So I would say nobody's I have a very hard time believing that anyone would be able to like truly keep all that good stuff that they've been generating and calling in at bay so aggressively for so long that they could like wreck everything. Which is the fear that we have, right? Like I'm like, everything is collapsing around me is the like place that we get to when we get in that real stress response. Probably there's a lot of slowing down. The fact is it doesn't have to be happening that way. The reality for whatever reality you want to look at, and perception creates it 100% right. You could be looking out at the reality that the news is showing you, and you always have to remember that the news is trying to sell you something. Like, I said this to a client the other day, that if you were talking with like a vacuum cleaner salesman, and he was telling you all about how his vacuum is the greatest, NASA approved, whatever, you would be running everything that came out of his mouth through a filter of knowing he's trying to sell me a vacuum. And so you would be like taking the truth of it with whatever grain of salt. Well, the news media is doing the same thing. The more news that we consume, the more money they make, the more scared we are. When the news is like, guys, everything's awesome, you should go to the park. What are we gonna do? I mean, it's a beautiful day. Have you thought about kayaking? Peace, like I'm out the door, and then I'm not consuming news, and then you're losing money, so you would never tell me that. So you have to filter it. But anyway, let's pretend you're not filtering it. You're believing this is reality, this glimpse of whatever they are showing you in the thing that's going to sell them the most news you think is all reality. That will be then the reality that you create in your world. But it doesn't have to actually have any impact on you. Like we're experiencing this, but if you look around, like if you really look around, take off your glasses of my perception of my own experience, and I'm looking around seeing that I think everyone else is having the same experience. But if you could practice taking those glasses off, every person you talk to is having a different experience in this pandemic. Vastly different. I know people who are thriving and people who are falling more in love with their partners than they've ever been, and people who are learning to be alone and discovering they love themselves and having all these beautiful experiences. And you know, the reality of whatever you think it has to be isn't what it has to be. I have a story for you that I just got yesterday. A dear friend and client of mine reached out to me towards the beginning of this, and her husband is there. She's a young baby, so her husband is the primary breadwinner at the moment, and he didn't just get laid off. They actually shut the company down that he worked for. Right at the beginning of this, they were like, we're not going to survive it, and to just shut it down. So they were out of income, and I was talking to her and I said, I just have this feeling, because I know her and I know her really well, and she's one of the best manifestors I've ever met. And she doesn't even have to really work at it. She's just like naturally gifted. And I was like, you know, I just feel this feeling like somehow, I don't know how in my human brain, but somehow this is going to be greater abundance than you've ever experienced. It's just, and so she left me a message yesterday and she said, you're not going to believe this. First, this thing happens and she's like, uh-oh, we have to feed our baby. She's like, you know, I know how to trust because I've been practicing. And Cara said it's going to be greater abundance, and I think I'm going to listen. That sounds good. So she just said, okay, so I'm just going to think that. And then her husband lands a little temporary job and they were paying cash doing something. And then like a short-term thing. And then finally came the unemployment. And then government said unemployment's actually going to go up. So now all of a sudden that went up. So that was great. And then their washing machine broke and overflowed and ruined, and they like kind of try to repair it, but then it ruined the floor. So now they've got a broken washing machine and a ruined floor, and then the dryer fritzed out. Now there are no washing machine, no dryer, with an infant trying to potty train and a ruined floor. And she was like, okay, we're gonna buy a used washer. We're gonna figure this out. And then a friend tells them about your insurance will pay for that. She's like, what? So they get a hold of the insurance company. Long story, a little shorter. There's layers and layers and layers. Under the laminate is carpet, and then asbestos. So this is going to be a huge process. The insurance company comes in and doesn't say, we're going to fix it. They say, here's money. And then they find out there's asbestos under there, and the insurance company says, here's money for the asbestos. And they are winding up $3,000 plus after they've replaced the washer and dryer and all new flooring the right way, including getting professionals to remove the asbestos. There's an extra $3,000 in their account. And then the stimulus check comes. And then in her business, and she works in an MLM business, she finally reaches the next tier that she's been shooting for the last like year and a half, which quadruples the income that she brought in. And she was like, we have more money in the bank than we've ever had. This flow that's coming in, plus these big checks coming from the insurance company, and you know, it's going in and out, but we're sitting in greater abundance than we've ever sat in however many weeks after my husband's company shuts down completely. So
there's stories like this all the time, and I love them so much because I think they're just such a great example of a few things. I've talked about this in this group a lot, but just this idea that, I mean, literally what you were saying before, that our perception, basically all of our perceptions are BS and lies. And so we really get to choose what we want, but we all just are having a different perception of what's going on right now. And I think that's just a helpful thing to remember. Like, we're all just filtering in whatever's going on and through the lens of our own BS. And just what we were talking about before, that everything is always happening for us. But I think what this example, I have a great client, example of client this month who just hit a record-breaking income month, $1,000 plus what she expected. But it's so much of what you're talking about. It's like she got clear, she got decided. There were all these reasons that couldn't have happened, and it did. And I think part of it is everything always happens for you. And like also looking at when challenges pop up, instead of like, well, fuck, my life is fucked. And that's when you're throwing mud on. It's not like things won't work out, but that's when you throw all the mud on the road and you make things harder to solve, when it's like, okay, I know things work out for me. I know this is an opportunity. Like, how can I trust? How can I lean in? How can I just keep moving forward and believing that everything always does work out for me? And of course, I'm going to be taken care of. And I think when you talk about your client, like this example, that's all this shit's happening, but there's still this ability to say like, okay, cool, but we're going to call the insurance company. Like, this is going to work out. This is going to be fine. And seeing, of course, it does. But I think what you were talking about earlier with just the fear scarcity piece, I think what happens, I think when we get wrapped up in fear, especially when what you were talking about, like almost the fear of the fear, it's like, now I have fear and now I'm scared my fear is going to keep me from getting the thing. It's like we dig the hole deeper and deeper. And so instead of just feeling fear and accepting it's normal and letting it move through us, which it will, kind of just like trying to resist it and trying to like bury it. I think of beach balls. If you push like a beach ball underwater, like the longer and harder you do, the harder it pops up in your face. It's like, that's the resistance you put up in your manifesting path. And so if she had, like, with her husband losing his job, she'd just be like, well, this sucks, and just gone into a tizzy, and then the washer dryer and the baby, and just had 15 meltdowns. I'm sure things would have worked out, but it probably would have taken a lot longer. And she might have missed the stimulus check or not called the insurance company, or like, meanwhile, the universe is like, I'm here, I'm helping you, I'm giving you everything you want. So anyway, that's my reflection on your reflection on the reflections of manifesting. But I think it's just like just a great example of manifesting and how us humans can get in our own way, or we can make it easier for the people who think manifesting doesn't work. We can just see, what I always like to say is, you're always manifesting. And in this case, she was just manifesting with ease what she actually wanted.
Yeah. And imagine that, let's use this example. And I'm sure that like permission for us all to just be human, you know, and to say, I'm sure she had moments of meltdown. Like, I'm sure she had, or at least moments of worry. The thing is, she's practiced this a lot for a long time. So she didn't hang out there. You know, she zinged herself back.
She could like tip the scale. I think that's the thing. It's like, we all have, like science says, we have negative thoughts 3-1. Like, we have negative thoughts, we have fear. That is like, we are all human. I cried this weekend, y'all. Like that stuff happens. I think what you're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the difference is either avoiding it. And when we avoid stuff, like, that is when we, like, it just grows 14 arms and legs, and it will, like, it's like, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. And that's when it just slows down the process. And it sounds like, or having the tools to process it, accept it, and then choose a different thought that's in favor of what we want, which it sounds like, if you have the tools, like what you're talking about. We have comments, by the way, which I will read to. I had a thought on scarcity as well. Carolyn says, hey, Carolyn, I can manifest really well out of healing out of injuries. Oh, out of healing out of injuries. That makes sense. When I wasn't supposed to walk again, snowboard, etc., I never was in fear of never again. However, the fear is overwhelming when I feel like I'm never going to make the income or fulfill my own expectations. Oh, I think that's a great one. Do you, I have thoughts, but I'll let you go, Cara, first, because.
Yeah, hold on just a second. Let me feel that for a minute. So, I'm a feeler, and I'm sure a lot of your people are, like, you can tell the emotions. Most people, if you read that comment and you sit with it for a second, you can feel the like of it, right? Like, the fear is it's closing. So the challenge in that is to try to let something come in when you're closed, right? And the thing you want so badly, but you're closed to getting it because you're so afraid of not getting it. This is crazy catch-22 we get ourselves in all the time. Superhuman thing to do. So first thing she should do is pat herself on the back for nailing being human. That's like the biggest thing, because yeah,
being human. I think you said that to me once.
Yeah, and I think because it's otherwise we do exactly what you said. We dig the hole way deeper, beating ourselves up for being human, which is what we came here to do. And don't make it worse on yourself, make it better. And then I would say that one of the funnest, most helpful things to do is to go back and find proof historically, little baby piece at a time, for your brain. Because part of the thing is you're like, I want to trust, but your brain is like, no evidence that it'll never happen because it hasn't yet, or whatever. Her brain could come up with pages and pages of proof. So she's got to shift that and she can go back and say softer things like, you know, money always shows up when I need it. Somehow I make rent. I have felt what it's like to make money before. In that previous career I had, so I know that money and I have been friends at certain points. So you see what I'm saying? Like little pieces that she can find that can like start to tip the scales of proof in her brain just a little bit. And then another thing that I love to do is to think about money like it were a person that you really loved and had a relationship with. And one of my favorite processes is just to write love letters to money. And think about if money were a person and you said to this person, you're never there for me. I just don't believe you're ever going to show up. I need you so desperately. Can you please just come all the time? I just want to hold you so tight and never let you go. You would be like, crazy person, get out of my life, right? But that's what we do with money. We get real weird about it. So what would the energy be like you would want to put out that would make money, if money was a person, want to come hang out with you? I really appreciate you. You've always shown up for me. Even when I didn't make it easy, you found a way to be there and make sure I had a roof over my head. That's love, right?
Love a good money love letter, or a good, like, you know, we've been talking about anger, like, or a good, like, releasing some anger for like the way money's let you down in the past. Cause I think that can be powerful as well from like a release forgiveness perspective. Cause I think there's a lot of power in forgiveness. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this, Cara, because the other thing that comes up for me, and I don't know how this plays into manifesting, but I know, at least with some of my clients, when fear comes up around things like making money or it's not coming up. And I think, I mean, my thought of manifesting is making things happen. So whether we're talking woo or in real life, I'm sometimes curious about what the fear is if it happens, because if we go back to you always get what you actually want. What I find is a lot of times, like, I've done the same thing. I've hit, I don't love the word ceiling, but I've hit caps in my income before. And I've had to sit down and journal when I'm like not getting to the next place around, what am I scared is going to happen? Like, what is the fear? What is the resistance? What's the, like, the story or the baggage I have around hitting this next income marker? I know my last, everyone in the group, I've shared this, but I just had a 20K month, and like, that's kind of like 25K is my max. And like, when I like going further, I've had to like recently journal, because I was like, oh, this is fascinating. My story about more is I'm gonna have to work really hard and I'm gonna have to take care of everyone. And like, that's the real thing. And so like, that's the piece I have to play with. So I don't know what comes up for you, but that's something, a personal journaling exercise I love. And I don't know how that plays into kind of what we're talking about here.
Helpful. And it definitely plays in, because we have, I call it the push-pull in our system, like conflicting desires. So for example, you have the desire for a 50K month or whatever, like you think the next thing would be, but you also have a desire in the other direction for, I don't want to have to work myself to death and take care of everybody. Those are two very potent desires in your system. And right now there's a tug of war, and neither one's winning, right? Like, so you've got a stalemate, and we get this all the time in our system. So if you can figure out what's the conflicting desire in this, and talking with, what was her name again? Who asked the question?
Carolyn.
Okay, so talking with Carolyn, I would ask a couple questions. One, I would ask, how old is your business? Because if your business is like a newborn or a toddler and you're expecting it to support you, that's so much pressure. Like, it's running around in diapers, trying to learn how to not like suck its thumb or something. And you're like, I need you to take care of the mortgage. Sometimes that's just a lot of pressure we put on, and we can find ways to alleviate in our own head okay, it's going to be all right for a little bit longer that I have this side gig and I can be grateful for the side gig or whatever. If the business is a little further along and it feels not like you're putting extra pressure on something that isn't quite there yet, then start to play with where is the push pull? What's the conflicting desire? And it's not that we have to like smash down the resistance or cancel the conflicting desire. We just have to soften and figure out a way to make both of those things okay. So you can, in your journaling and in your work, start to soothe that by promising yourself, I have self-care set up and here's how I'm going to structure it so that I don't have to do 14-hour days or whatever. And start to prove it to yourself, truly, not just lip service, and coming at it from the like, all right, here's my agreements with my family or all the other people I think I'm gonna have to take care of. And so I make it okay for myself for that tug of war to move in the direction of I want to make the income because these desires feel like they're met. Like the desire to not have to take care of everybody and the desire to take, you know, time for myself and self-care feel met. And now all of a sudden this one shoots.
I have like 800 thoughts. I'm trying to keep us like somewhat focused, but the thought that comes up for me there, and I think this might be a good segue into some other pieces, though I will come back to scarcity around manifesting, but I think a lot of what you're speaking to here, I think just the pressure piece and just even with manifesting, I think I have two thoughts. I think sometimes we forget things are already on the way. And we as humans in our human experience, and this happens with clients all the time, and I lovingly have to remind them, like, you're showing up, you're in belief, the results, the clients, the money are already on the way, but you're having your human experience where it's like not on your timeline. And the longer we're like putting that pressure and like, you're not on my fucking timeline, the more we're actually causing resistance and putting mud on the path, so to say, as the analogy we're going around. My coach gives, this is so not my analogy, but my coach gives the example of if you had a hole in your wall and you like look at it and you're like, I'm going to call the carpenter. They're going to fix the hole in the wall. And so you call them, they're like, I'm going to be there in 3 days. If the carpenter says they're going to be there in 3 days, fix the hole in your wall, you're like, cool, you just go about your life because they're coming in 3 days. What we all do in business and what we do with manifesting and with clients and making money is we've got a hole in the wall. We've called the fucking carpenters. The carpenters are on the way. And then we stare at the hole in the wall and we're like, why are you there? And then we're like chiseling at the hole and then we're like pounding it. And by the time the carpenters come, because they were always on the way, we don't even have a wall anymore. We've just like, they've got to like build a whole new wall. And so I think like that's like just to what you were saying with like the pressure and just like what we do, like when everyone's like, oh, manifesting doesn't work or business strategy doesn't work or mindset doesn't work. It's like, well, it's working, but you have to like trust that it's already on the way. And then the other thing I think that you were speaking to that I think is just really powerful, always with manifesting, but particularly in this group, just when we're thinking about manifesting money and clients, you were talking about the action piece as well. It's like you were talking about the push pull, like, you know, if I go and journal, if I'm journaling around the self-care, I then also have to show up and take action and do the self-care or take action to hold the boundaries. I have to, it's not just like show up as my, like show up as the higher level, the next level income self, but I also have to take those actions to like have that push pull stop. Otherwise,
100%.
I'm just journaling my face off. And like, that's great. But that's like what you were talking about at the beginning. That's like having a vision board,
Right.
which is beautiful, but like that's not the whole thing. So that might be a good segue into manifesting mistakes. Also, I want to be mindful of your time because I've kept you for a while. Oh, and we have comments. I'll read the comment. Now let me hear your thoughts first. Then we'll come back to the comments, y'all.
Okay. I love this. And I have so many things coming up. So let me narrow it down to the top thing. If we can play with when something happens, saying, I wonder how this is really a blessing. I wonder where the good in this really is. So if we go back to, because we have the idea in our head that we're manifesting one thing at a time, because we put one thing on our vision board and we want that $1 million and we feel like we're so committed to it. But the truth is that's BS. That's all that our brain's aware of. But inside with our desires, we're manifesting 100,000 things, some way out in the future, some really close, some really big, some really small, some we really desire and some no angst about it all. So when we have something happen, So let me back up. If you use the analogy with my friend and her washing machine, let's imagine that she was saying we need to feed our family and want to have abundance. Let's imagine that she's also been saying, maybe not out loud, but just with her desires, man, our baby is changing so much. And sometimes it's a lot of work. I wish my husband was around more. Or I wish he could see all the firsts that are happening during the day when he's at work. Or maybe he's at work thinking, oh, I wish I could be home with my family. I wish I could see more time with my wife and see my baby and what's happening. Or let's pretend that she had a really strong desire for their whole family to be really healthy. And that baby girl, who has a very potent point of attraction with really no resistance at all, wants to grow up healthy and strong and fit. And their higher selves are aware that there's this asbestos in this house that maybe could be doing some damage or something. I don't know about asbestos.
That's the 7 p.m. clap, all the woos you're hearing. So sorry if they're interrupting your train of thought.
We'll
give a little clap. Continue.
Yay. Oh, that makes me happy. So if their higher self knew all of that, right, which they do, and they know all those different desires, and maybe let's say the husband, now that he's been laid off, has a desire to do something with his hands because he's been participating in part of the fixing. So here comes this incredible symphony of events that seems to us in the human form like a catastrophe, but really underneath is this incredible way to bring together all these desires plus a million more we could never even figure out into something. So the fastest way for you to get from, oh shit, this just happened, my floor is warping, now I don't have a washing machine, woe is me, to letting all that good stuff in is to start to look for, where is my silver lining? Where is this really a blessing? There's a little rain cloud in front of a giant sunshine. And if I can find that silver lining, I can remember that this just a little teeny rain cloud happens to be blocking my vision to much bigger good stuff on the other side.
I feel like the title of this should have actually been Everything's Always Happening for You, because I feel like that's just been the general theme. And I promise you I'll come back to these comments. I'm not forgetting y'all. I think so much of what you're speaking to, and I think it's just such a powerful reminder, is everything's always happening for you if you're able to look at where is the gift. Everything's always serving you, and not from a coaching question perspective of how is that serving you, but really everything we're manifesting in our life, good or in air quotes bad, if we can almost start to look at it more neutrally and just see it's happening for us, it always is happening for us. I think what comes up for me is, and if you're willing to see that and see the lessons and how it's happening for you, then you get to keep moving down the path. I think what happens, humans have a human experience for so many of us, is we forget to see the lesson or the gift in something, and then the universe has to keep giving us the same thing over and over again, because you don't see the gift of having your husband at home and his hand, and all of that, and you're ah! And so the universe has to create something else to keep giving you the same thing. Or if there's a lesson, let's say you keep having the same relationship that doesn't serve you, and what you really want is love and connection, you're going to keep meeting that partner who is going to teach you the lesson to love yourself first until you love yourself first. In business, there's a million analogies with booking clients and making money. And so I think that's just a nice thing. Everything's always happening for you. And the more you can see that and accept the lessons, I think, and tell me what you think, I think the easier it is then to move on to the next lesson and actually get the gift, versus pushing the dog in the box, not seeing the gift, and having to keep get 100 boxes until we finally open it. Does that feel true?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm going to read these comments, and then you tell me how you're doing on time, because clearly we could just talk. I have 8,000 thoughts. I'm loving this conversation. Okay, let's see. We've got, I think, a few more below. Thank you all for bearing with my technology. I think, okay, how do I see all the comments? Come on, Facebook. All right, Mary said something earlier that I can't read because I don't know how to work Facebook and Zoom at the same time. So Mary, I'll come back and read that one. And then she put hearts. Carolyn says, love, yes. I love the toddler business analogy and the push-pull identified. So good. Kim, the hole in the wall analogy was brilliant. Thank you. Love you. So glad those resonated. Cara is brilliant. Mary says, love this with multiple manifestations. It's so true. It's so, so, so true. Oh, I have a thought that I will share on that. And then Mary says, yes, the universe will keep giving us lessons until we learn. Yes, it will. The thought I was going to say, just to piggyback on what you were saying, Cara, I think just for those people who don't believe in manifesting or think maybe it's not true, or, oh, I only manifest bad stuff, or whatever the story is there, I think it could be a really just fun exercise to write down 3 things you've manifested positive, 3 things you manifested negative, and just like what led up to that, just to see that we literally are always manifesting. We just tend to not want to pay attention all the time, when we tend to pay attention to either the good or the bad, or think it's a coincidence, versus we're always manifesting. I manifested a new laptop, y'all, because I killed my other one. And I think that I used that example before too. I think it kind of goes with the washer dryer example. And I think that can just be a fun way to play around with just starting to notice the evidence that you were speaking to in a different way, to starting to notice the evidence that we're always manifesting. And I think the more you can see that, the more you can connect with your higher self, to use your language, to exert, feel like you have more control, and you can be in that energy to speed up the process. I think the more we don't think it's true or don't see it, the more we're putting that mud on the road. Does that feel, I mean,
Totally.
you're more of the experts. Does that feel accurate?
Yeah, I think so. And I think I think one of the beautiful practices to do is, if you want to play with manifestation, like you want to start practicing doing it on purpose, because you're already manifesting. So you want to start practicing doing it on purpose. There's a couple of, can I share some tips? Like for
Yeah. I would love to hear some tips, and I'm just going to see if I can pull up the rest of the comments on my phone. So I'm not kidding you all. I'm not being a jerk here. Please share. I would love to.
Okay. So this one can be, and this is not permission to beat yourself up. So I have to say that first. No permission to beat yourself up. You can't use it.
Say that one more time for the people in the back, please. Because I think that's important.
Because we have a tendency to like latch onto it, and you don't dig yourself in a hole. You can only pat yourself on the back at your humanness. So to practice stopping in a moment and say, I wonder what I'm manifesting right now. And so what have I been thinking in the last 15 minutes? Well, was I thinking the world's coming to an end? Was I thinking, nobody ever tells me I'm beautiful? So frustrating. So where was I putting the energy? Now it gets a little complicated, because in both of those examples I just gave, the world's coming to an end, no one tells me I'm beautiful. The energy you're putting out is world coming to an end and nobody telling me I'm beautiful. But the potent desire on the inside that's being born is the world doesn't come to an end. Everything's beautiful. Everyone's happy and peaceful. And I get told that I'm beautiful a lot, and I feel it and I know it and I'm confident. So that feel that like chasm between like what you've got going on currently and what you're really truly wanting, and your higher self is already on board listening to this and being like, yeah, of course, people should tell you you're beautiful, this is great, and the world's not coming to an end, everything's wonderful, awesome, we're on it. You're over here being like, ugh. And so you've got that happening, and you're getting little bits of like a dust bunny. You know how a dust bunny or like a tumbleweed goes along and then it collects more as it goes? You're kind of doing that. Now you're grouchy, and now definitely no one's going to tell you you're pretty. And for sure, you're going to turn on some real horrible news. And like, you're going to kind of like stew in your own muck for a little while until you finally pull yourself out. So pausing to say, what am I possibly manifesting right now? And then could I get on board with the desire instead of the like angst that got me here in the first place? So that's one thing that I like to practice. Another thing is practice asking the universe for things and then letting it go.
Yeah, I'll chime in with that one.
For things you don't have a lot of angst about, that there is some desire for, but not a lot of angst. and then put your order in just like you do with a waiter at a restaurant. And then you trust that they're going to take it to the kitchen and the kitchen will actually make it. Don't get up, follow the waiter, come in and try to help, because food safety. And that's rude. Sit down at your table, have a nice conversation, forget about it, and then be surprised and excited when your food shows up. Oh yeah, I'm so excited, Benedict, or whatever. So put your desires out there, and I'm not knocking vision boards. I think they're really fun, but put it out there however you want. You could put it on vision board, you can write it in your journal, you can stop and think about it. Visualizing it is the greatest thing. If you can visualize it, close your eyes and just imagine it until you can taste it. Like if you want a partner, like I want to know what the inside of their mouth tastes like get in there and like in your vision. Or if it's like you want to
maybe not with your clients, depending on what you all do for business work, but you get what Cara said.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm like legally supposed to say something there.
If it's like, and if it's clients you want, if it's the money, well, okay, so what does it look like? What does it feel like when you're getting like the bank accounts going up? What does it feel like when you're sitting in a room with 18 people and they're all your clients and you're leading them through a live workshop, or they're all buying your XYZ product? Get into the like, can you evoke an emotion in your system? Because that's like pouring gasoline on the spark of that desire. And then walk away from it. Send it to the kitchen, go take a bath, take a nap, take care of yourself. Think, how can I be positive without worrying about this thing? And then see where it goes from there. And sometimes you have to let go of it for a while, which is why I say start with the things that are less angsty, because they come easier and faster.
I love those. I don't know if you've read Mike Dooley's book, but he talks like a different concept about the restaurant. And when you were talking about this, it made me think of that. And he just talks about put an order in, and then don't be that person who's like calling the waiter back and changing it 14 times and then wondering why your order hasn't showed up because they have to keep changing it in the kitchen. And it's sort of the same thing with the hole in the wall. Like expect the order to show up. And I think what you're speaking to, that I talk about more from a mindset perspective, but it's, you know, it's all part of the same thing. It's the detachment and it's the self-trust piece. And I think self-trust, just since we're talking to business owners, like it's such a core piece of running a business. And I think being able to make money and book clients on so many levels, like manifesting, but also just creation and sales and all the things. And I think what you're talking about there speaks so much to, can you put the order in and have that self-trust that of course it's already on the way? Because when you have self-trust, you're able to surrender, detach, let go, whatever word you want to insert there. The reason we cling on and we hold on so tightly, or that we go to the kitchen and change the order 14 times, or call our team 18 times to change something, you know, fill in the blank there, is because we're not in that self-trust. And I think that kind of even goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. It's where we throw mud on, I feel like there's a country song in there, mud on the track, so to say. So I love those exercises. I will tell, I think I've told everyone in this group before, but I will 100% put orders out to the universe when I want to book a new client. I'm a big believer in, we didn't talk about this so much, but the part of manifesting is then also the very aligned action. And I believe when I take aligned action, one of my mantras is when I take aligned action, the universe sends me money and clients from expected and unexpected sources. Meaning I absolutely believe if I show up, if I want a client and I put an order to the universe, I'm going to book it, but it might not come from the avenue. I think that's my surrender piece. Like it might come from somewhere else, but I'll just write out a note to the universe. I'm like, I want to book a new client this week. And it always happens, y'all. So I think that's just a piece to play with. I have a friend who actually has a, what do you call them? The order notepads for servers. She actually writes orders to the universe on them every day. So it's not my idea. You can totally steal that from my friend if you all want to play.
Perfect. I have a journal, and people always laugh when I tell them this, but truly it's sitting next to my toilet because I'm a captive audience in the bathroom.
I love it.
And I like to be entertained. And I write in my orders. I write love letters to the universe, and I write, good morning. Can you please take care of this today? Here's what I would love to feel. Thank you so much. You're blowing my mind. Like I like, it's my like communications and love notes and thank yous and requests to the universe. Like, this is going so awesome and I can't believe it. And I just asked you for it 2 days ago. And oftentimes I forget because I let it go. And then I open it up and I'm flipping to get to my page. I realized like, oh, just yesterday I asked for this thing. And when I asked for it, I was like, I don't know how they're going to pull that off. But, and then the craziest amount of circumstances came together that I never could have imagined to make that one little thing happen. And now it's taken care of and it's no big deal. And I thought it was this huge thing.
It's kind of, I mean, I feel like in many ways, this is where I think it's science, because I also think then with that, when you're doing that, you're also, from a mindset perspective, telling yourself to focus on that. And then you're going to get intuitive hits on, I should follow up with that person. I should pay attention in that group and comment to that person, to take the aligned action piece. And so I think in that way, and I say this just because I don't want someone to hear, great, Kim and Cara, you said I'm just going to write this on a piece of paper like the vision board, and like, where the hell's the money and the clients? And I think just to kind of take it to the next step, what all of that does, you're communicating energetically, you're communicating with the universe, whatever you believe in, but then you're also setting yourself up to listen for those intuitive hits from your higher self or from your subconscious, whatever everyone in this group believes in, to then show up and take those steps that allow it to come in from expected or unexpected places. I personally believe there's some magic involved, but there's also, I think, just a lot of science for those of you who connect with that a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the same thing. I just like the word magic. But I
just also think it is magic.
Same.
Really. I'm like, how? Like, what? Sometimes some really crazy things happen.
You and I have both been practicing this. So we have the benefit of, when we put this on paper, we now expect it. We believe in it because we've proved it to ourselves a billion times. So at the beginning, give yourself a little time to build the proof. And don't give up on it if the first time it doesn't work. Make it a little easier, or see, like, is there a resistance piece? Am I attracting something else? Am I trying to like bite off the biggest bite that feels impossible? Am I asking for something that I really don't believe I could have? Try something a little smaller and build the belief.
Okay, I'm gonna give us one more thought, and then I'm gonna ask where people can find you, because I'm sure you have like dinner and things, and I will just keep asking 18 questions, because everything you say, I have 14 more thoughts. But I think to what Cara's saying, absolutely start small. This is with anything, money, clients, manifesting. This goes back to what Cara was saying earlier, to release that pressure valve a little bit. And I think there's a difference. We expect it because we trust it, versus we expect it that we're setting high expectations, and that when it doesn't show up, we're like, well, now I'm bad, or now I'm wrong. And I say that just like, let's make sure what Cara said earlier, this isn't an excuse to be shitty on yourself. And I think just to what we were talking about earlier, if you're starting small and things aren't showing up, I think it's just such a great invitation to practice what we were talking about in terms of, so where is the gift here? What did I actually want? How is this giving me what I actually want? Or how is this the calling in the carpenter or putting in the order? And can I trust that this thing is on the way? Cara, I love you. I adore you. I feel like we could do 17 more of these, because I have 8,000 more things to talk about. And we also have a couple comments. For those of you I miss, I just don't know how to pull them up on Zoom. So I will come back and respond to you all. Tell everyone what you have going on. I know you have a couple amazing things going on right now. Tell them a little bit about where they can find you, what opportunities there are to interact with your magic, and let's close out that way. And we can always do another live on the manifesting.
Okay, good. Because I still have so many things I want to say.
I do too. Okay. I do too. We got to just do another one.
So I have, in light of this whole thing that's been going on, I put out a free group, and I don't do this. So this was a really fun and unique thing. It's called The Playground. So we can go have a recess there, because I really believe that our spirituality should not be overly serious and hard. And it's twice a week. You can sign up for free. We're coming towards the tail end of it. It's a month long, but all the recordings are there. So you can go in and sign up, and you'll get all the recordings. And they're little 30-minute recesses, little live chunks And they have, each one's different. So it might be a guided meditation or a healing or a practice, or we've done different things on each one, and people are really having fun with it. And it's been just little bite-sized pieces to help bring us back to that place of alignment. Like we were talking about, like, how can I come back to that positive feeling and that expectation that good things are coming to me when I get thrown off kilter because, you know, the washing machine or the COVID or the, you know, life, helping me come back to this place of like, I believe everything is actually working out. So that's on my website. People can find me right on the website. There's a bunch of free.
Do me a huge favor when we hop off, because you're in my group, can you drop a link under the actual Facebook live feed? And that way for all of you, if you're watching now or on the replay later, it'll be really easy, and you can put a link to your website as well. But let's put a link to this particularly because that's such an amazing, wonderful gift. And that way it's just really easy for everyone to find.
Great. Perfect. And I'll put, my website's just caraviana.com. It's really easy. And I'll put that in the comments.
Beautiful. Do you have anything? I mean, not that you have to, but I just want to make sure if there's anything else you wanted to share in terms of places to find you or things you want everyone to know.
I think that's it. I have one more little thing I want to say on the self-trust piece that I feel like might be handy. So when we want to build that self-trust around something that we don't have evidence of, like I want to trust myself that I can build this business, but I've never done it before and there's no proof. So how would I blindly trust myself? If we can find aspects of ourselves to trust, like if you can trust that higher self or that intuition piece. My intuition has always guided me towards things that were really of benefit to me. For some reason or another, I always could see in hindsight, and my intuition has got me this far, and I can kind of wrap my head around the fact that my intuition probably knows a lot more than I do. And so I can believe then that my intuition is going to keep taking me breadcrumb by breadcrumb by breadcrumb towards the success that I'm dreaming of. So you can find that self trust by leaning on the trust of what's the bigger version of you. So that piece feels relevant.
I love that. I'll share a personal story because sometimes it's helpful to hear concepts and stories. And when I started my business, the reason I do teach mindset work, y'all, is because it's what I need to fucking do every day. And I didn't have a ton of self-trust. And I remember one of the things, it was kind of to what Cara's talking about, I had to borrow self-trust from myself in other areas of my life. And what I started to look at was, oh, wait, but I acted for 10 years in LA. And that, like, talk about, like, I moved with 2 suitcases to a new city. That was really challenging. I got an agent. I went to South Africa and filmed. So I could take the self-trust from there. I picked up and moved to New York City with no job and like started over. Then I could borrow the self-trust from there. And so I just had to stack up and borrow it from myself. And so I think, just to what Cara's saying, I think that's really powerful. And I know sometimes when I talk with clients, sometimes when we're in that place, like, there is nothing, I've never done anything, because sometimes we just like want to be our own worst enemy. While we always want to have it's self-trust, right? Not other people trust. I do think that's where sometimes you can also borrow it from other people, not forever, but I just want to say to clients, like, borrow my confidence in you or borrow my permission. And I think sometimes we can, like, borrow Cara's self-trust, borrow my self-trust, borrow the self-trust in someone you resonate with. Cara was talking about energy. And I think sometimes we can use that, again, has to come from you eventually, but sometimes we need to borrow it from somewhere else because we're just like so in our own stuff that it's really hard to like find the evidence for ourselves. So that's
Love it.
Because you just make me have all the piggyback thoughts that I want to talk about this forever.
So good. This is why we riff together so well. That's beautiful. And the word borrow feels really potent in there. Wherever you're borrowing it from, like if you need a cup of sugar, go find a cup of sugar.
Yeah, the sugar's out there. So borrow it from us, borrow it from someone else if our energy isn't your jam. But I think the important thing there is to trust that it's out there. So if you can't trust it from yourself, go borrow it and then borrow it from yourself.
And you and I do this with each other in our mastermind when we have moments like, eep, I'm nervous, or I'm just about to do a big thing and I'm a little nervous. And like we lean in, and then there's the rest of the mastermind to be like, girl, we have seen you a million times do the thing. We got you, you got you. And it's just like, here, let me just remind you, you gave me the sugar last week. Let me give it back to you.
when you said that, and then we will for real, y'all. Thanks for hanging with us for like an hour and a freaking half. I always do this. I feel like we were talking. Is this you? This might have been my client this morning. You said the universe gives you a mirror, but I think you were talking about the higher self. I think when you can borrow from someone else, we seek out from other people who mirror stuff we see in ourselves. So it's like if you're borrowing self-trust from someone else, you can just believe that they're holding up a mirror to what you have somewhere inside of you. And I think that's what we do for one another. I think that's what coaches do. All right, I'm going to close on that thought. I love you. I adore you. Thank you for hanging with us. Y'all, thank you for being with us. I will check. I just spit at the screen. I will check the comments and see what is there. Cara will leave where to find her. And I will be back next week and we'll have another live stream then. I love you all. Stay safe, stay healthy. Mwah. And let's see how I do this. I might hang, let's see. I think I have to